Over the past couple of years, there's been a trend of looter shooter light RPG superhero games, which have been almost universally hated and mocked for their dull gameplay, shady monetization, to cringy and outright offensive stories. But this video won't be about taking these games apart. Now that it's been 2 years since the release of Kill the Justice League, I wanted to look back on these games that I do enjoy parts of, and put them against each other to see which is the best of the worst. The games that I'll be competing in this video are Marvel's Avengers, Gotham Knights, and of course Kill the Justice League. How this will work is we'll go through several categories, and whichever is the overall best will get 2 points, and then second place will get 1. And we'll be talking about the games as they are now. I will bring up how they used to be sometimes, if there's something important to say, but none of that will be used to affect the points. With that being said, let's look at the story. The story mode of Marvel's Avengers is one of the strongest parts. The game begins during this massive Avengers celebration called A-Day, where they are unveiling a new clean power source known as Terrigen. But after a terror attack, the Terrigen reactor explodes, destroying the helicarrier and seemingly killing Captain America, and causing superpowers to awaken in thousands of normal people. After the events of A-Day, the Avengers disband, and all their assets are bought out by AIM, an anti-superpower company promising a cure to all the people infected that day. But in reality, they are using what they call Inhumans to create abilities for their adaptoid weapons. So it's up to Kamala Khan, an Avengers superfan who was there on A-Day, to find the Avengers and bring them back together to help save her people from the tyranny of AIM. There's actually very few generic multiplayer missions mixed into the campaign. Most of it is unique, and when it's good, it's very good. What comes to mind is slowly piecing together an Iron Man suit as Tony Stark, while your home is under attack, or fighting on top of the helicarrier in the rain as Thor. These moments are very fun. I love seeing how each Avenger handled what happened during A-Day differently. Bruce Banner got trapped inside the Hulk, and Iron Man went into isolation, while Black Widow worked in the shadows as a spy, preparing for the day they can bring the fight back to AIM. All these moments being performed amazingly by the cast. Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham return as Black Widow and Thor from other projects. Troy Baker as Bruce Banner, perfect casting in my opinion. And freaking Nolan North as Iron Man, oh so perfect casting. Jeff Shine voices Captain America, who you may know as Chris Redfield in Resident Evil Village, which is really funny because Roger Craig Smith also voiced Captain America. Come on! Also, the secondary villain Monica Rappaccini is voiced by our very own Ada Wong, Jolene Anderson. Gotham Knights is unique out of the three because it's primarily a single-player game, but falls a little short in a few aspects. The story begins with Batman's death at the hands of Ra's al Ghul, leaving Gotham in even more of a wreck than usual. So it's up to Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, and Robin to come together and become Gotham's new knights. Their efforts lead them down Gotham's rabbit hole of corruption, discovering that Gotham's 1% has a secret society that's been controlling the city from within its very walls, the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is one of my favorite storylines, and one of the first ones I ever read, so it's very special to me. So it's hard for me not to get giddy at the things they directly adapt from the comics. Those parts are very good, like the Labyrinth, but certain parts of the story drag way too long, with a lot of predictable twists. But all the environments are completely unique to the campaign, no reused areas between multiple levels, and it's not that long anyway, so the boring parts are usually right next to good parts. The cutscenes are different for every character, which is a nice touch, but your co-op partner doesn't appear in them at all, except for one moment they run through a door. There's not a lot of character in the main story past their basic personalities, but there's optional cutscenes you unlock throughout that fleshes them and their relationships out. These are very good. A lot of Batman fans talk about how this game is base level with a lot of its characterization, but I don't personally mind. It gets who these characters are, and I know for a fact it sparked interest in them for people who didn't necessarily read the comics before. The cast here is also pretty good. Christopher Sean is perfect as Nightwing, and fun fact about him, he is in both Avengers and Kill the Justice League. He's just additional voices in Avengers, but in Kill the Justice League, he voices the Toyman, funny enough. Stephen Oyoung is Red Hood in this. You may know him as Martin Lee in the Spider-Man games. I'm kinda mixed personally on his Red Hood though. I like Red Hood sounding a little whiny and a bit immature, and in this his voice is a little bit too deep and sexy. And Michael Antonakos did fantastic with what he had for Bruce Wayne. You can just feel the love and respect he has for each of the Bat family.
Hey, Suicide Squad! Fuck you!
Kill the Justice League story is fine in isolation, and actually starts off pretty strong, but there's one very big bat-shaped problem hanging over ready to perform an inverted takedown. This game takes place in the Batman Arkham universe for literally no reason other than marketing. The game begins in Arkham Asylum. Yeah, it took them literally 5 seconds to break canon. Gotta be a new record. At least there's a cheeky reference to the Arkham Asylum meme. The Earth is getting invaded by Brainiac, who has already defeated and brainwashed the Justice League. So Amanda Waller uses this opportunity to finally put together her Task Force X idea after like 10 years, persuading Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, and King Shark with a micro-explosive in their head to go and kill the Justice League. This game's story isn't meant to be taken too seriously. It's genuinely one of the funniest games of recent memory.
Yeah, go Superman! Oh fuck, it's Superman! That's the Flash? You might as well post him the bullet.
Did you get him?
Oh, you shouldn't have done that, Shark. That's Superman. He'll kick your ass. Please don't kill me, evil Wonder Woman. Look, here's his thumb. It just came off, I swear.
Step on me next.
Man, you know it's gone to hell when you... Really? Why don't you just mail me the bullet?
And the evil Justice League are a lot of fun, especially the Flash and Batman. The first 2 hours are honestly fantastic and made me think I'd like this game the first time I played it. But the thing is, they made it canon to the Arkhamverse, which barely makes sense, and you generally wouldn't be able to tell if it wasn't for the aesthetic and certain music cues. The story completely falls apart in the second half. Batman is Brainiac's tactician throughout the game, and is generally very cool. You'll be roaming around the city and just see him watching you like you yourself did in the old games. And of course the Batman Museum section is perfect. But once you actually go to fight him, it all falls apart. 1, his boss takes literally 5 seconds, and it's just a generic shoot big thing.
No. Fear the Batman. No!
But the thing that actually kind of bothered me is later when he's tied up in Luthor's lab, he says,
I am vengeance. I am...
Hey!
No!
That's not just something Batman says, that line does mean something. It represents Batman conquering his fears. It represents his strength to keep going. He is not afraid, he is fear, he is the knight, he is Batman. If this wasn't meant to be Arkham, I think it would have been received so much better. But this is Arkham Batman, this is my Batman. The Batman that made me fall in love with the character, and superheroes in general. Then literally right after that, he is literally taken out back and shot dead. This whole section just kind of made me feel depressed and a little dirty, but I do like more of the story than I dislike. But the parts I dislike absolutely kill it for me, and I know many people agree with me. I don't know how they thought people would react to this. Before you say, I know the Justice League are clones, and it is foreshadowed in the main story. I'm not going to pretend that it was the writers pressing the panic button, but it does still feel so dirty, with everything down to the music. And them being clones doesn't change things like the off-screen death of Bald Robin, and the budget tanks so much by the end that there's no satisfying return, so I'm just left feeling empty. But yeah, I went on way too long about one topic. Let's get back to being positive by talking about the cast, who are amazing. Starting with my favorite character, Captain Boomerang, who was played by Daniel Lapine. He's perfect and by far the funniest, especially in his scenes with the Flash, played by Scott Porter, who you may know as the main animated voice of Star-Lord, as well as in Marvel Rivals. I want a Flash game so bad with him as the voice. He was spot on. And of course Tara Strong, who you probably know, but if you don't, just turn on Cartoon Network and you will hear her within the first 30 seconds. Brainiac is voiced by Jason Isaacs of all people, and of course the great Kevin Conroy, who kills it as Batman as always. This is probably the hardest category for me to declare the winner, but I'll say last place has killed the Justice League because of the lack of unique areas and levels. The whole game is just multiplayer objectives over and over, and the fact that the story just falls apart halfway through, kind of souring the whole thing. Second place is Gotham Knights, and first place is Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers is developed by Crystal Dynamics, who are the developers for Tomb Raider, and you can feel it. Avengers is just a slightly less polished version, so the things about the movement feel so imprecise. Like my character was about to fall through the floor, mainly with the walking characters. The flying characters on the other hand feel fantastic. Each Avenger has their own movement ability to get around, with Iron Man and Thor obviously flying. Captain America has a wall run and double jump, the Hulk has a super jump and wall grabs, and Black Widow and Miss Marvel have grapple points. The combat is pretty basic but fun. It's a usual mix of light and heavy attacks, mixing attacks to break shields or get yourself in the air. Each character also has their own special abilities on cooldown along with instinct abilities, which is a usable resource you have to manage. That is for things like Iron Man's repulsors, Captain America's block, you get it. There's a good variety of enemies, but the game doesn't really show off a lot of them. Most of the time you're just fighting generic aim robots over and over. But overall, the gameplay loop is fun. Gotham Knights got a lot of criticism when it first released, with people who have no idea how to play the game, so that's the game's fault. The game has a free flow battle system similar to Arkham, but instead of building combos to get special moves, you're building up a momentum bar that lets you use your special abilities, and timing your button presses makes you build momentum faster to use your abilities more often, basically like the critical strikes in Arkham. But the thing is, almost every review I've seen that's negative about the combat never utilizes momentum abilities properly. For example, there's the brute or the fast enemies, and in reviews, the footage always just has them taking them down in the slowest and least interesting way possible. And that's the way the game tutorializes it right at the beginning, which is why I slightly blame the game but not really, because it doesn't properly tutorialize generalized momentum abilities and just has it written down what each can help you with. A lot of the early criticism was pretty bad faith in general. To be fair, I wouldn't call it a good battle system. I just wanted to clear that misconception up. But the movement in Gotham Knights is just awful. It's like you're on a tightrope at all times. Even just turning around is a nightmare. Your character just gets stuck on nothing. And it was somehow worse when it came out. You also had the usual Batman grapple and bat cycle, but once you finish each of the character's respective mission chain, you unlock a special movement ability. And some of these are just so random. Batgirl's is the best. She gets the classic Batman glide, but Nightwing gets a Fortnite glider. And Red Hood, who in this universe got mystic powers from the Lazarus Pit, jumps on farts in the air. And Robin uses the Watchtower's teleporter he hacked into. These are fine, but the movement can be kinda slow. You can fast travel, but those missions are annoying in their own right. Kill the Justice League's gameplay is really solid. I love speed in games, and this game delivers. Most of the time you'll be shooting, but your shields don't recharge automatically, so you have to harvest them from enemies with melee attacks, which is super satisfying. There's also mayhem moves that go on cooldown that are devastating. Each of their characters has their own movement ability, which changes the way you see the world. They all have a wall run to get up high, but everything else is completely unique. Deadshot can fly around with his jetpack, but has low fuel, so you have to balance being in the air and using his afterburners, and touching the ground or a wall to recharge it. Shark has a crazy super jump, which is my least favorite to be honest, and Harley uses stolen Batman gadgets to swing around. Boomerang uses stolen Speed Force tech to speed around everywhere. And if I can say one positive thing about this game, is that the gameplay and combat is super fun, and that's why it gets the win. The boss fights in Avengers aren't very good. During the story, you'll come up against a few, and they're a bit better during it, because of the cinematic-ness of them. But during the actual endgame, they're so repetitive, just a health bar you hit till they die, with not much differences between them. The MODOK battle is probably my favorite, probably because you only fight him once, unless he's in some raid I don't know about. But overall, these bosses aren't that interesting. Taskmaster is slightly interesting, because he uses your abilities against you, but that's basically it. And then there's the mech bosses. These are super boring, even the first time, but at least each character type has a different way of fighting them. Gotham Knights is basically in the same boat. During the main story, you fight only 2 bosses, and they're both at the very end. A big problem I have with this game is the lack of villains. It's meant to be Gotham in chaos after Batman's death, but there's only like 3 major villains outside of the story, being Clayface, Mr. Freeze, and Harley Quinn. These are less punch till dead than Avengers, and the set pieces are pretty amazing, especially with Freeze and Clayface. But if you do the endgame, you'll end up fighting these guys over and over, and they kinda lose their glamour. Then lastly, we Kill the Justice League, being at the top of the pack when it comes to gameplay. The bosses were the main selling point of the game, and it mostly delivers, especially with the Flash. There's a huge sense of we're screwed when it comes to taking down the Leaguers. Each boss is well built up. The game really shows you how much more powerful they are than you. But to be honest, the fights are all just a little bit too easy. But the dialogue during the actual fights are super fun, and make up for it a little. But of course, the worst boss in the game is Batman. Batman has great sections like the Batman Museum, as I mentioned before. Later when you find the Batcave, they do the same gimmick, except it's much longer and doesn't hit nearly as hard. Then the actual boss is a giant nightmare Batman that goes down quicker than it took me to read this sentence. This game also has the problem of fighting the same bosses over and over and over, with the various brainiacs being repeats of the Justice League battles. But I'd say one truly bad battle out of 4 isn't too bad. These are a lot of fun and the highlights of the game, but I think Gotham Knights bosses are slightly more mechanically interesting. So I'm gonna give the win to Gotham Knights, but Kill the Justice League is second. Marvel's Avengers is kind of baby's first looter shooter. Your characters all obviously level up to get new skills and abilities, and what's cool is that later trees you get to choose between multiple skills to build up your playstyle, but the actual gear is ultra basic. There aren't really any meaningful enemy weaknesses, so elements tied to gear aren't super noticeable, except for things like pin particles that shrink enemies. There's other gear stats, like you take less damage from this element, or you make health drop more often, but it's mostly just pick the higher number until max power level. But even then, you don't really have to think about what you equip that much. Gotham Knights is the same in this aspect, except the elements are way more noticeable. Lightning gear, for example, is a must, especially on someone like Red Hood or Robin, since it disables guns and certain attacks and spreads across enemies. It's just amazing. Gotham Knights is also going the way that gear actually changes your character's appearance, with different weapons and suits. Legendary weapons are also colored gold so you can show them off fully, and they even added extra rarities to hunt for with the second Heroic Assault update. And you actually have to think about your loadout before fighting raid bosses, which I can't say for any of the other games. There's also the mod system for an extra layer customization. It gets better and better the more you play, which is how gear should be. You also have a skill tree here, and every character shares a level, so you don't have to grind each. The gear in Kill the Justice League feels kinda pointless. You're not working towards anything. I went straight from the story to one of the last endgame areas and I had zero problem. Enemies seem to scale with you, so you're not not really building to anything, you're just getting more crap. The only thing you really want to go for is the infamy sets, which do have interesting things to it, but it all feels so pointless. You just get stuff to get stuff. No interesting bosses to fight or anything. It's just play the same missions over and over to get the same loot over and over with no real progression. You don't feel more powerful, you just play more. It's boring. So first place goes to Gotham Knights. So we talked about progression and gear, so what about what you're doing to get it? Marvel's Avengers is more mission-based compared to the other two open worlds, with a ton of variation in its missions. And it's obvious what you get for what missions you do, and what missions you should do next. First there's drop zones, which are single objective jump-in missions that only take a few minutes to complete. These are good for like event challenges and stuff. War zones, which are the main multi-phase missions, with side objectives and decent loot. Vaults, which are kind of mini-raids, with huge maps with a ton of extra chests, where you need a special item to open. Hives, which are like the long tower modes, and so much more like villain sectors and character missions. There's a lot to do in this game and it's all fun. Gotham Knights has a surprising amount of endgame content. First there's the random crimes, which I love. During nights you gather clues, and depending on the amount you gather, the more crimes will appear on your map the next night. It's really fun and gets you into the vigilante roleplay. Harder and harder types start to spawn as you play the story, and the harder ones obviously get you better loot. Then there's Heroic Assault, which is a tower mode where you go through floor after floor doing the same shit over and over. This is fun at first, especially if you can get 4 people playing, but the last levels are so hard and not in a fun way, especially that annoying ass fucking payload mission. If you played the game, you know what I'm talking about. The second Hero Assault is a lot better, because it's a lot shorter and you get much more interesting loot, and you get to replay all the bosses as pairs. And then there's the raid variations of all the bosses in the game. These are fine, just a bit of fun for people who want it, not too amazing rewards. Then there's Kill the Justice League. I've already bitched about this one's endgame, so I'll keep it short. It's just the same shit over and over and over. The loot doesn't matter, and you just refight the same bosses you already fought. Not interested. Boring. Who cares? Moving on. If there's one thing I can say about the art style of Marvel's Avengers, it's generic. It looks good, don't get me wrong. I love the lighting and how everything has a light shine to it, but a lot of it is just uninteresting. The characters and environments all look like MCU light, if that makes sense. Like they're trying to capture the MCU without copying it one-to-one. The faces especially look like the Disney World actors for the Avengers, and environments have that MCU flatness. But the plainness of the level slightly helps in one aspect, and that's just because of how much visual diarrhea is on the screen at all times. If the maps were any more interesting, I think the game might actually be unplayable. And as for the performance, when this game came out, I was on PS4, and every 2020 game just ran like shit on PS4, so I don't really have a fair opinion on the game at launch. So I did some research, and it seems to have had pretty bad frame time and a lot of stutters. But nowadays the game runs perfectly. Personally, I've had 0 issues, even while recording on the same computer. I've had more experience with Gotham Knights. I was day 1 with this game on PC, and it ran like absolute poop. It ran at a consistent 40 frames on PC. And on console, they cancelled the promised PS4 and Xbox One's versions, but then even the PS5 and Xbox Series versions ran at only 30 FPS, and apparently still is to this day, even with the Pro consoles. That mixed with the horrible movement made this game feel just awful, with not that good graphics to make it worth it. Nowadays it runs flawlessly on my system at least. The world itself is quite beautiful and stylized though. The way they play with colors is phenomenal. All around the skyscrapers are fog, illuminated by neon lights, and the sky has a million different colors and weather variations, like the beautiful red sky right out of the animated series. The streets below are horrible, dirty, and wet, the ground only being lit by the warm street lamps. The architecture is also beautiful. You can tell this game is made by WB Montreal, because when they do Batman, they always have a focus on the city of Gotham itself, the history of the buildings and the world, and you can feel it throughout. The Court of Owls sections also stand out. They go straight out of the page. If there's one thing in Kill the Justice League that can tell you Rocksteady made it, it's the world. It's beautiful. It's just another thing that gaslights you into thinking this game might be good. The beautiful golden Art Deco city, shadowed by the oppressive skull of Brainiac's ship, is a worthy successor to Arkham Knight's world. I see a lot of people say that this game has bad graphics, but I honestly completely disagree. This game's visuals are amazing. It's kinda just ruined by all the particle effects and chaos on screen at all times, and you can barely see anything behind the explosions, colors, and slots or whatever random shit is happening, and it's held back even more by the performance. When not recording, it ran around 55 to 50 FPS at almost the lowest settings, while out of combat on a 3070. While in combat, it sometimes went down to 40. While recording, it was worse obviously, but that's not exactly fair. So I'm going to give this to Gotham Knights for its creative colors and world building, an amazing adaptation of comic book locations, but Kill the Justice League is second. Marvel's Avengers post-launch started rocky to say the least. The first major update introduced a new hub, a new mission type with the Tachyon Rifts, and a new character, Kate Bishop. Though the new playable character was great and became my main, people felt that they were doubling down on the parts of the game that people didn't really like. The same can be said for the next few months, with only a few new mission types like flashbacks, and boring events like the Red Room were added. A along with a ton of overpriced and ugly skins. The second story expansion also disappointed, with it being another Hawkeye, with the same boring missions, but a whole new future wasteland zone. But then it started to get good with the third story expansion, War for Wakanda, with actual interesting missions, new enemies and bosses. Very few people came back to play it though. It was too late at this point, everyone had moved on. Not even releasing Spider-Man could save it. They continued updating the game with new balance changes, and adding new 4-player raids that required max level and when you die you're dead, brand new bosses and a few new characters like Bucky and Jane Foster. The game was actually in a good state, but that's me talking in retrospect because I stopped playing at this point too. So the game was inevitably discontinued and delisted, with one last balance update, and all the cosmetics being made free. I already talked about every post-launch update for Gotham Knights in the Endgame section, so I'll be brief. The first update just over a month after launch added Heroic Assault, which is a difficult tower mode where you face off against Starro, and the Showdown mode, which allowed you to replay raid versions of the various bosses in the game. This update also made it so you can stealth take down any enemy no matter their health. Only the OGs remember doing those fucking bomb missions when you couldn't stealth take down anyone. It was brutal. The second content update added the Kelvin incident, which was half the size of the first Heroic Assault, and has you going through floor after floor, then eventually fighting the boss fights in pairs. Also introduced mythic gear. And then there's Kill the Justice League. This is how you don't save a game. All things considered, this game was pretty good. The story was fun and the gameplay was solid. A good little 8-hour game, but it just kept getting worse. The first update added a weird Elseworld version of the Joker, which sounds interesting. The Joker long dead in this world. Harley at one point dedicated her life to him. How will these characters react? Answer, they don't. There's one cutscene where he's introduced, then it's just back to grinding. And of course, characters just take so long to unlock. But for the people who have played as him, apparently he is a lot of fun. So I'll give it that. The update also added a Joker-themed reskin for Metropolis, which is honestly less interesting than the regular map. Then the next few months were just reskins and weapons. Until July, where they added Mrs. Freeze? This is by far the weirdest character choice ever. One, it's yet another Batman-focused character. And two, of all characters, are gender-swapped Mr. Freeze. Why not just add someone that people would actually want to play as, like, Killer Frost? The third character added was Zoe Lawton, which I don't mind too much. There could have been something interesting story-wise here, like how Deadshot is desperate to see his daughter and make things right with her, but also hates the idea of her in danger and helping them. But like all the characters, they barely touch on that, like they barely touch on anything interesting. Then there's also the fact that this is yet another unknown character. No one's gonna come back for Deadshot's daughter. She's a character you add later. I know all these characters were planned beforehand, and that's kind of the problem. Who thought it would be a good idea to have the first 3 characters be biblically accurate Jonkler, gender swap Mr. Freeze, and Deadshot's daughter? The last character they added is a character that people would actually want to play as, Deathstroke, who kills a bunch of Brainiacs off screen because Rocksteady ran out of money. It's just all so uninteresting. The whole game was just play the same missions to get boring guns to fight the same bosses to unlock boring characters. And they're surprised no one played it. Imagine they added actually interesting characters like I said before with Killer Frost, or imagine Bronze Tiger, Dr. Light, Count Vertigo, El Diablo, Killer Croc, Cheetah, Black Manta, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, Reverse Flash, Enchantress, literally anyone. Even not traditionally bad characters would have been better, like Red Hood or Arsenal. Just anything other than fucking Mrs. Freeze. Avengers wins, Gotham Knights second. A big part of these games is the multiplayer. Sadly, none are in a good state. Marvel's Avengers is long delisted, so it's almost impossible to get, especially on PC. On consoles, you can just buy the game pre-owned, and it'll work without issues. But on PC, which is my platform of choice, you have to look for keys on shady websites, which are not infinite and not reusable. So they'll just get rarer and rarer as the years go on. So it'll be pretty hard to get all your friends set up. Matchmaking with randoms is also very unlikely, especially because the game lacks crossplay. But the AI teammates are good enough. You can choose exactly which characters you want to join, and they don't really shadow you too much. They go off and even do objectives on their own, but the super endgame raids you can't do solo, so they are basically unplayable. But from what I remember, they weren't that good anyway, so... Gotham Knights on the other hand is also unlikely to find random players, because most of the people have completed the game and just moved on. But the game is still available to buy and goes on sale pretty often, and is also available on both Xbox Game Pass and PS Plus last I checked, with full crossplay, so it's super easy to get a group of friends in to play. Except the story is only 2-player, while the endgame is 4-player, so I've always just stuck with 2, because none of my friends have the patience to go through the game on their own. But if you have 3 others already into the game, you can all play the endgame, and it'll make it way less painful too. But I've only ever managed to get a full group of 4 people once, and I've been playing since the day it came out. Suicide Squad was dead on arrival. Basically no one played the endgame, especially today. On rare occasions you might find one other person to play with, but definitely not a group of 4. The AI teammates that replace them can't die, but you don't really notice them doing anything since the battles are so large scale. So the multiplayer winner is Gotham Knights. Second place is Kill the Justice League. Just because you're unable to buy Avengers anymore. If this was based on the past, then Avengers would definitely win. Marvel's Avengers monetization was just awful when the game came out. Every character had a battle pass, including a premium track, plus brutally expensive and ugly bloat skins. And the main outfits were specifically designed to be generic, just to make you want to buy skins. But as time went by, they kept changing things, like removing the paid battle pass, to removing it altogether, to making more skins available to earn in-game. And eventually with the final update, it just gave you every skin for free, which kinda screws over the people who actually paid extra money on the game, but it's also a pretty nice gesture for the people still playing the game. They also eventually started adding more quality skins like the MCU, and more direct-to-comic skins. And since we're judging the games how they are now, Marvel's Avengers is actually pretty good here. Don't get me wrong though, the launch monetization was just unforgivable. Gotham Knights is not a live service game. A lot of people have a theory that the game was meant to be, but they changed course when Marvel's Avengers flopped. But either way, this is a game you buy, then you have. No additional purchases, except the deluxe edition upgrade, which gives you Batman Beyond inspired suits, and these suits by the legendary Jim Lee, most known for his art on Batman Hush, plus a few extra unique emotes and colors for your suits. The deluxe upgrade is a little expensive though. When bought on its own, it's like an extra 32 Australian dollars, which is way too expensive, but it goes on sale a lot. Then there's Kill Justice League. Oh boy. The monetization is just brutal. First, let's talk about the unlockable characters. $10 American for one character, while every other game here has them for free. Wait, you can unlock the characters for free, you just have to grind the same missions for hours and hours, which feel designed to be purposely tedious to make you want to pay. Then there's the Battle Pass. I'll give it credit because there's no FOMO involved. If you buy the Battle Pass, you keep it. Except the Battle Pass is 1, overpriced, and 2, has the ugliest cosmetics. Even the store cosmetics are ugly as hell. Some even made me bust out laughing. The only ones I kinda like are the Flashback Arkham skins, but even some of them are ugly. The point goes to Avengers. Second place is Gotham Knights. Goddamn, Kill the Justice League is something else. So counting up all the points, in last place we have Kill the Justice League, who would have figured? Then the runner-up is Marvel's Avengers, so that just leaves Gotham Knights as number 1. Honestly, I'm not surprised. Gotham Knights had a big advantage of not being live service, and having a lot of genuine care put in. When it came out, I predicted that eventually it would be considered a misunderstood masterpiece, like Arkham Origins or even Knight, and I can already see that happening online. It got a good amount of deserved criticism, but a lot of undeserved bashing. I enjoyed making this video a lot. It actually reignited my love for the Avengers game. I've actually been playing that on my own, not for the video. So more of the story is, enjoy what you enjoy, and don't let anyone not let you enjoy things. And anyone want to play Avengers with me? My DMs and Discord are public.